Welcome back to another episode of the Miami Heat Roundtable. I'm your host, Amir. We got Martel joining us today. You can find him at the Miami Heat Zone podcast. And we have a special guest joining the show today. We got Ty. Ty, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Excited to chat.
Yep. Good days to be a Heat fan, huh?
It's been a slow and boring off season, and Ty just told me what team he is a fan of, so we'll get to that in a second. But Ty, before we get started, do you want to just introduce yourself to the audience and talk a little bit about your channel and what you cover?
Yeah, so I'm Ty. Like I said, I'm here with The Real Ty Small. That's my YouTube channel. Started it about around this time last year, primarily covering the NBA, not just one team in particular, but kind of the biggest storylines and happenings across the league and everything. So that kind of ranges from game reactions, off-season content as well. I've been pretty scarce on content the last couple of weeks here, trying to find something and everything. But that's kind of what my content's all about. Every once in a while, I try to touch on some different things, but primarily NBA basketball-related content, some college basketball mixed in there as well. Been doing it for about a year on my own channel, enjoying the process, enjoying editing, recording, all of those things, and definitely looking to keep it going and excited here for this opportunity to collaborate with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a grind, and it's almost media day and training day. Like, so we have like a week and a half maybe or so, and then preseason's just right around the corner. I think it's like first week of October. So thank God we're getting close to some more actual NBA coverage. So it's been a grind, obviously, trying to come up with topics throughout the summer. Even as a Heat fan, it's been difficult. I can't imagine being a Wizards fan. So Ty is a fan of the Wizards, which is obviously a divisional foe of the Miami Heat. So he gets to see the Miami Heat play against the Wizards at least, 4 times a year, two here, 2 there. So Ty, my question for you regarding just the Miami Heat in general, coming from a division foe, what are your thoughts on the Miami Heat's possibility of actually contending next year? Do you see them as a perennial playing team for the 3rd season, or do you think a contract Jimmy, a Bam, who's obviously ascending, and then maybe a team that could be healthy with some young pieces added to the core? What do you think the outlook is for the Miami Heat next year?
It's very strange because you said it. They could be a playing tournament team. And the one thing I talked about on a video I did a couple of weeks ago is they could be a playing tournament team and still be a legitimate contender. Like, one thing about the Miami Heat is their regular season performances. They may be inconsistent over the years and everything like that, but they are just that team that figures it out every time in the postseason. That's what's really amazed me the most about this team, is every time they get to the playoffs, they're figuring things out. If you look at 2023, you guys know, playing tournament team, right? And then they get there and make an NBA Finals run. I don't think people talk about how impressive that Finals run was. And I know they didn't win, but to me, I don't really care what anybody says. That was the most impressive Finals run I've seen in a minute, given where they started and where they were able to end it. And I know they weren't the best during that series against the Nuggets, but still an amazing path there. So kind of saying that to say they can be really unpredictable, right? I think on paper and also just with the experience, they're a contender in my eyes. Some people are kind of torn on it a bit, but I really do like their mix of experience, their mix of young players, the talent. Guys fit together well. And also, I just love that they have a legitimate culture. And those to me are the makings of a championship level team. One thing they have that they didn't have in 2023 in the playoffs is an abundance of like perimeter shot creating around Jimmy Butler. So there's Terry Rozier, who we only saw, I think, 31 games out of last season after he was traded there. There's Tyler Hero, who wasn't healthy during that 2023 finals run, and everything like that. So I'm really confident in them this season. I like the maturity from their young guys too. Like, we can talk about them having a lot of second year or rookie guys like Jaime Jaquez and those guys, but those guys play a very mature style of basketball. Jaime Jaquez is a very mature player, right? And you can only imagine it's going to rub off on Khalil Ware and guys like him. Nikola Jovic was also solid in his minutes last season. So I think they've got all the makings of a contending team, to be honest. That may seem a little weird to a lot of people, but in the mix in the Eastern Conference, I think they're right in there, to be completely honest.
So when it comes to the Miami Heat, what do you think about Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler? Because, Jimmy Butler, he is our aging superstar. I feel like he's been able to do more with less. So, are you on the trade Jimmy before it's too late? Because he's all about his money, and then obviously he wants to get paid. But I keep telling people this all the time. It's not about what we think. It's about what does Pat and Mickey think. do they are they willing to give him the money where he's going to be 38 years old at the end of that deal? And there's no way that he's all of a sudden going to play 80 games. He's all of a sudden going to try throughout the regular season. He might play maybe 5 to 10 more games and try a little bit more. But think about it. If he wants max money, but he's really not able to give us that max effort. And then in terms of Bam Adebayo, I think he's honestly the best defender in the NBA in terms of at him being 6'9", being able to guard the guys like Kyrie, then he can guard Luka, then he can guard Embiid. You know, not only is he switching, he's anchoring a defense where when you look, he's either had a top 5 defense with the Miami Heat or a top 10 defense throughout these past few years with undrafted guys. When you look at all these other defenders who they have a loaded team, you know what I mean? Like when you look at Rudy's team, he has Cat, you know, he has Anthony Edwards. There's so many different guys. Like when you look at the Boston Celtics, they have a great defense. All these guys that are, you know, quote unquote defenders, they have a great defensive unit around him. And Bam Adebayo is doing it with undrafted guys and a 6'5" power forward.
Yeah, they're a unique team. I give Spo a lot of credit for that too. Like another thing is how they've been able to maintain their solidity in the post LeBron era is like really unthinkable. Like when a guy like LeBron leaves your team is as far as how like a lot of people talk about it, your team is supposed to be, I guess, in turmoil for a little bit, right? They've managed to stay afloat. Even in those years before Jimmy Butler, they had some years where they were competitive. I've been so impressed with how they've been able to stay afloat since the arguable best player of all time left their franchise, right? And then, like I said, that speaks to that culture. And as I said there earlier, that rubs off on the young guys, right? And that rubs off on the undrafted guys too, who always come in and always perform. There's like a revolving door of younger players or undrafted guys that are like really, really effective for them over the last couple of years. As far as the Jimmy Butler thing, I'm not going to lie. I don't really have an answer on that. That is a very confusing, difficult situation with him where he is your best guy. And I always say this, Jimmy Butler turns to a top 5 player every time he gets to the postseason. It's a tough situation. Definitely, I've been kind of pondering it the last couple of weeks and how to kind of go about it. I was going to do a video talking about it, but I've been pretty confused as to how that result's going to look. You know, if you do move him away, he's good enough to where you're going to get a really solid return for him. And I think they'll be good enough. Like if you can move them away, I don't have a lot of trade packages in mind right now, but you move them away, there's going to be a solid return to where the Heat are still going to be somewhat competitive and things like that. And that's kind of weighing it between keeping him now and extending him until he's like 38, like you said. So it's a double-edged sword because also there's this too. You keep him here, you're in that area of being a competitive contending team in the East. Like I really think they are right there just as much as a lot of other teams right now in the Eastern Conference. Like I don't want to rant, but like people really leave the Heat out. Them and the Celtics over like the last 5 seasons have been the most consistently great teams in the Eastern Conference. It's them. That's since 2020, 2 NBA Finals appearances for both of those squads, right? And I would not leave them out of the mix as a contender. And moving away Jimmy, yes, they'll still be good enough. They don't have to go into a complete rebuild if they move them away. That could be a situation, but they wouldn't have to do it. But at the same time, would you want to do that? Or would you want to stick with what you have and still contend? And I think they have everything right now to contend. But as I said, it's a difficult season since he is nearing the end of that contract and everything. So to be honest, I don't have a good answer for how to deal with the Jimmy Butler thing at all. It's one of the most confusing, tough decisions right now across the entire league.
Yeah. And then what about Bam Adebayo?
Oh, as far as his contract situation or just him as a player?
No, just him as a player, because like I said, you know, like I just think that he's been robbed of DPOYs. You know, yes, he's getting the All-Star nods, but in terms of the DPOY, he's been getting robbed.
Yeah.
You know, he's averaging 20 and 10. He's a multiple-time All-Star. He's an Olympian. How is he not getting DPOY?
Well, there's a guy named Rudy Gobert, and I think
he's being taken off the floor. Off the floor. Like in the Olympics, in the NBA, like everywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Rudy Gobert has owned the defensive narrative for like the last couple of seasons, and I do want to give him credit. He has been good enough during the regular season to kind of win those awards, and it was kind of tough to go against him this past season because the Timberwolves were a dominant defense, and he was anchoring that during the regular season, and given that the Defensive Player of the Year award is a regular season award, I understand why Gobert has been getting it consistently over the last couple of seasons. But I do agree with you. I do think Bam is a much better defensive player because we're not having the defensive issues in the playoffs with Bam that we've had with Rudy. But given that DPOY is generally a regular season award, that's the tough duality with Rudy Gobert. During the regular season, he's deserving of that award. Like, if we're just talking regular season, I think he's deserving of it. But Bam is a better defender to me and is more effective because of his consistency, not just during the regular season, but also during postseason time. But given that it's a regular season award, I understand it because Rudy Gobert's regular season defensive production matched up with his team performance has been that good over the last couple of years. It's a really, really tough situation to kind of weigh, but I can see why he doesn't have the hardware just yet because Gobert's been that good. And there have been some other guys in the mix over the last couple of years. But as far as last season especially, I can see why Gobert got it. I agree that Bam is a better defender, but I can see the argument for why Gobert got that award and everything. But I still think Bam, like I said, is a much more versatile, sustainable defensive player when it comes down to it.
Yeah, he doesn't get the credit for being a defender, but also a two-way player, right? Because his offensive skill set is a lot better than Rudy Gobert. Obviously, he's very limited with what he can do. And I know there's the vanity metrics of defense, which are steals and blocks. So Bam doesn't get those at the same clip that Rudy does. So I'm not going to trash Gobert, which I've done before with Martell probably and others on these shows, right? Because we're obviously upset the Bam Jam hasn't even been recognized yet for one, but it's because Rudy Gobert gets those blocks. But again, he's the best rim protector in the NBA. He's anchored top defenses. He's transferred that defensive scheme and skill set from the Utah Jazz, who were a top defensive team when he was there anchoring that defense. And now the same applies there. So I understand it, right? Like, he is a system. He is a defensive system himself. He can guard 4 and 5. What pisses Martell and I off and other Heat fans is that Bam can guard 1 through 5, right? So like, Gobert is getting cooked. He's on skates with Ja Morant, with Steph Curry, with any of those superstar guards. Bam is obviously going to be on skates too, to a certain degree. Like, no one can guard any superstar one-on-one, but Bam could stay in front of them for a little bit. Like, he can make their lives a living hell. He could also defend, not amazingly, but he can, he's guarded Jokic well. He's guarded Embiid well, two of the biggest, most skilled MVP type players. And so, like, he can even defend those types of players all the way to the Stephs, the Ja Morant. So that's what makes us upset, is that he's not getting the recognition for guarding 1 through 5, because he's not averaging more than a block or more than a steal, right? So that's one issue. And then Martell always brings to the point he did earlier that Bam is playing with undrafted players. He's playing with Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. Yes, Jimmy Butler's good, but Jimmy Butler joined the Miami Heat at age 30, right? He wasn't young Jimmy. Like, he's still a very good defender, but he made one All-NBA defensive team, I think, on the Heat with Bam. So Jalen or Jaden McDaniels on the T-Wolves, like, that guy was an All-NBA defensive player this year with Gobert. You saw what Nickeil Alexander was doing off the bench as another 3-and-D. Like, Anthony Edwards is trying to be him and trying to be the best two-way player in the NBA, not just the best NBA player. So I think Gobert gets more help than Bam, which is unfortunate. But it's also funny thinking we don't really rank the best two-way players as the best overall players separately. Like, if we think about it, Kawhi Leonard, who has 3 championships, whatever it is, with does he have 3 different teams or 2 different teams? Raptors, obviously, Spurs, 2
and
teams.
then another. Yep.
He's never been considered the number 1 overall guy in the NBA, even though when healthy, when winning those championships, he was the best two-way player, but no one ever considered him better than maybe a KD or whoever, right? Like, offense is still always a priority when it comes to ranking players, but that doesn't apply with Bam. Like, what he can do on the offensive end doesn't really matter what he can do on the defensive end. So, but anyway, Martell, let me ask you this real quick too. So, because you brought up Jimmy Butler and the whole contract situation, so there's been rumors, and Martell and I made a video yesterday on this. Jimmy Butler's rumored to be linked to either Brooklyn or the Golden State Warriors, or maybe even the Houston Rockets. And so, Martell, if we do a trade for Jimmy Butler, let's say he's injured or just not playing really well, and we're 10-15, 10-20, and not a playoff team, would you rather try to get a bag with like picks, kind of like how Bridges did with 5? Like, if he got 5, Jimmy better get at least 3, depending on the package. But would you rather have 3 to 4 first-round picks, or would you rather have like the 2 picks and then you get like 2 or 3 players, like a young, up and coming player? What package would you prefer?
they have to give me Kuminga, and then after that, the picks. That's it. If they give me Kuminga and those picks, they can keep the rest.
3 picks, right? We don't want Wiggins'
3 picks,
contract. We don't need any
No. I don't want none of those dudes. Give me Kuminga to put next to this nice young roster with Ware and Jaime and Jovic and Hero and Bam. Give me Kuminga. He's a nice athletic wing. I think that Steve Kerr kind of held him back a little bit throughout the past few years. But can you imagine a primetime talent like him in the Eric Spoelstra system? Phenomenal.
I had a question I want to ask because I've been actually talking to people about this. I want to ask both of y'all about this because I've been talking to people about this for a while, and this isn't super Heat specific, but you mentioned his name. What do you guys think Kuminga's upside is? Like, is he future franchise level guy? Like, is that his upside? Because there are those guys that we feel like could get there, and Warriors fans talk about him as if he could get there, and I can see it because he has a lot of upside, and he did do well with more minutes. His production went up with more minutes and more usage last season, so there's some hope. But I was wondering, where is his ceiling at? Is he franchise level sometime down the road? Do you guys think? I know sometimes that's hard to tell, but like, what are you guys' viewpoints on that?
That's Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr kind of held him back, like I said. Steve Kerr wasn't giving him the minutes, and why not? You know, Stephen Curry was literally leading his team, even though they were getting blown out and losing. And, you know, Klay Thompson, he really wasn't the same. Draymond Green's not going to give you that offensive production. And there's really not that many athletes when you look at the Golden State Warriors. I mean, outside of Kuminga, who's really their athlete? I mean, Stephen Curry, yeah, he could shoot lights out, but he's not an athlete. Draymond's not an athlete. Klay wasn't, you know, not anymore. He's not that, you know, great wing defender that he used to be. I mean, is the potential there for Kuminga? Yes. Do I see him being a star? I don't see a star. I just see a very good player, a very good high-level role player. But in a specific system, he could be really good.
Yeah, he could be. I mean, he's 21. He's played 3 seasons. He played 26 minutes last season. 26 minutes. That's it. Like, imagine him becoming a full-time starter with it, whether it's the Warriors or any other team, getting 35 minutes per game, like being in a different system or better system. Like, the Warrior system is good enough right now, but like the focal point is obviously was Steph, Klay, and Draymond, right? Like the dynasty figures. So his role expanded. He was pissed off that Kerr wasn't starting him or giving him enough time, but he's so freaking young. He's so athletic. He's so strong and talented. Like I'm looking at it right now, rookie season, 16 minutes, sophomore season, 20 minutes, 26 minutes. Like he hasn't, and he's been healthy, 70, 67, and 74. So I think giving him more time, he's only 21. Like he could still develop and improve his 3-point shot. Like he's been shooting 34% for his career. That's not horrible for a guy who's not really considered a shooter, right? So I could see him, he has the potential, like he has to prove it, right? And get the opportunity. Opportunity is like half the battle in sports. So I could see him being like an Iguodala type of guy, perhaps all-star. I don't see it yet in terms of like a superstar. But remember Iguodala back in the day when he was on Denver playing with AI, like he made some all-star games, was averaging like 21, 22 points per game. I could see him being that Iguodala kind of, you know, middling kind of all-star type of dude, right? Not going to be like a superstar yet, but who knows? The sky's the limit. You could see what happens in 1 year. Look what happened to Anthony Edwards, right? Like it's just 1 year time frame. You know, he's growing in front of our eyes really quickly. So he's 21, man. That's the second youngest guy in the Miami Heat is 21, you know? So it's like he's got a lot of time. So I think he could be good. What about you? Did you answer that, Ty? Your own question?
Yeah, that's another one that's why I'm interested to see people's perspectives on it, because that's another one I'm really torn on. One thing I really like, and I know I kind of briefly mentioned this earlier, is young players who are around like great players in their first couple of years. Those guys turn out well all the time, right? And that's why I'm really excited about Jaime Jaquez. Your rookie year, you're playing alongside with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and you're playing in the Heat culture system. Now let's talk about 5 years down the road, right? I'm not sure what his contract situation is and everything. That stuff pays off, right? Like if you're playing around great, talented, experienced players, those sorts of things they end up rubbing off on you, right? So if we talk about Kuminga, your first season, his rookie season, you talked about his production, his minutes. His first season, he won a championship. He's playing with Steph Curry, he's playing with Klay Thompson, and playing with those guys. So that experience rubs off on you. That's why I'm excited to see what he does, because not only does he have a lot of talent, but but he also has a lot of experience, and there are a lot of intangibles that he's picking up from those other guys, and also being coached by Steve Kerr, who I know has gotten a lot of criticism these days. But Steve Kerr is also just one of the best coaches in the league, and he completely turned that Warriors franchise around. I don't care what anybody says about him. So I'm excited about Kuminga. Again, franchise level, not sure, but definitely a ton of upside. Love his intangibles, love the tangible skill sets as well. I'm excited to see what he ends up doing a couple years down the road, or maybe even this coming season with more production.
But he actually reminds me of Kyle Kuzma, because I think that Kyle Kuzma is a phenomenal player, and especially when he was talking about heat culture and really taking basketball seriously and taking the profession. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that anymore, especially all these younger guys actually, respecting the game, because believe it or not, Ty, we love the game more than some NBA players. You see what I'm saying? But like when it comes down to Kyle Kuzma, remember he was playing behind Kobe, then he had to play behind LeBron James and AD. So with Kyle Kuzma, always linked to the Miami Heat, what do you think about his fit for this Miami Heat roster, where I know they want Bam to play the 4, but I think Kyle Kuzma is the perfect 4 next to Bam Adebayo. His rebounding, his floor spacing, his athleticism, his defense. So what do you think about Kyle Kuzma, especially how you are a Wizards fan?
I like his game. I really do. There's that experience factor, like you just mentioned. I think around his second or third season, he won an NBA championship and was a major rotational piece. You mentioned his defense. He doesn't get a lot of credit for his defense, and I get it because we haven't been very watchable. So not a lot of people are going to watch Kyle Kuzma play defense out here for Washington. But just a very versatile player, great floor spacer, very sizable as well. You can fit him between that 3 and 4 spot. I like what he does also. Like they like to go and run zone. Obviously that they like to have a lot of length when you're running zone and things like that. So Kuzma and Miami Heat zone defense, that seems like a cheat code. So I really like his game. I think he'd be a really good fit there and everything. I'm big on moving him away to make as much space as possible for some of our younger developing pieces down the road. It's like a thing with the Wizards where we'd keep certain guys on the roster that will be better off on another team because we need to make space for the young guys. Like we kind of drug our feet a little bit on the rebuilding situation by not letting go of Bradley Beal earlier, right? And I don't want that to be a thing with Kuzma. It's not like Kuzma's not the same player as Beal is, but let Kuzma go. Let him go to a contending situation like a Miami Heat squad and make room for those younger guys like Koulibaly, Alex Sarr, who plays a different position than him and everything like that. But I like Kuzma in Miami. I like that idea. Fits perfectly. Like you said, there's the spacing. You're not going to ask him to do a ton of shot creating. Depends on how the roster looks after that move and everything. But he works, a very good plug and play guy, very competent player, high IQ player, and all those things. I like that fit definitely because of his versatility, his length, that floor space and ability, and all of those things. And also his coachability and, like you said, that mindset. And once again, comes right back to those intangible things that you get by playing with great experienced players early on in your career.
All right, so Ty, thank you for coming on the show. Where can the people find you on YouTube or on social media?
Yep, you can find me on YouTube at The Real Ty Small. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Ty Small, and also find me on TikTok. I started posting there a lot more over the last couple of weeks at the same handle, The Real Ty Small, and I'm also on Twitter. That is going to be the same name, and those are the platforms you can find me at. Again, it's all going to be under The Real Ty Small. Glad for the opportunity to talk with y'all, talk Heat basketball with you guys, and I appreciate it again.
Guys, so make sure that you head over to his channel, hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you go to Amir's channel, hit that subscribe button, and thank you guys for all the support.